I would say the first thing that I wish that I'd known prior to starting is that everybody doesn't know what they're doing and they're just trying to figure it out. And there'll be times in the process that you don't know and you feel like everybody around you does know and they don't. Everybody's trying to figure out something, some part of their process. So you want to give yourself grace as you figure out whatever it is in your process.
Welcome, Wolfpack fans. Today, we have a different kind of podcast for our listeners. It's going to be a little bit of a mock counseling session with Dr. Shana McDowell. Welcome, Shana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, we're happy you're here because we have not had an episode like this before where we talk to someone who is in the messy middle, as I call it, of putting the final touches on your PhD. You've defended your dissertation. You got the unconditional thumbs up, which, first of all, let's just take a break and say congrats, doctor.
Thank you.
We met in January, so it was your last semester of your official PhD completion of classes and writing and all of those things. And I wonder if you could share with our audience just a little bit about the journey. Why'd you decide to get a PhD? What is it in? All the fun things.
My PhD is in biological and agricultural engineering. I also have a minor in operations research. And I chose to get the PhD because during my master's, I was a part of a Bridge to PhD program where they kind of like expose you to what it would be like to, I guess, get a PhD and you're working with other students who are PhDs. And it kind of just creates like a natural bridge from your master's work to your PhD work. And I also wanted to be a professor at the time. And so in order for me to be able to do that, a PhD was just the next natural step. And for undergrad and for my master's, I went to HBCU, Historically Black College. And so I didn't know many people who were getting PhDs. And so I was like, well, I want to do that in something quantitative. And that's kind of how it started. And ended up doing agricultural work too.
I love this. And so tell me, a non-scientist, and many of our listeners are scientists, so they can understand a higher level, but at my level, why does what you did matter?
So essentially, I guess the overarching goal is that it affects the food that we eat. There's an impact on the food. And so like for North Carolina specifically, I study sweet potatoes and how they grow during the growing season. And we apply machine learning to determine how things are growing. There's a positive impact to just knowing how they grow and that their value is tied to like their aesthetics, because when we go to the grocery store, we have a tendency as a human to pick pretty produce, but there are other sweet potatoes that don't look as pretty as the one that's in the grocery store. They're just as nutritional. And so this research that I do impacts like decreasing the amount of waste that we have for sweet potatoes or loss, and just having a better knowledge of how they grow so that we can kind of hone in on that preferred grade. So a big impact to the food that we eat.
You explained that really well. Can I call you Shana, even though you're a doctor?
Of course.
Okay, we're kind of on the friend
can.
level, but I know you earned this doctorate, and everyone should call you doctor. But just because we're kind of being a little bit low-key today. Shana, so I have to tell you a fun fact about this. My mentor, I came to NC State in 1991, and my mentor, Dr. Tom Monaco, was head of the horticulture department. We're still friends today, and he's retired from NC State, but he has a sweet potato variety named after him. So I can't wait to tell you about him and also to tell him about you, that you're doing all this work for the waste and the food and the nutrition. But that's a variety of sweet potato. Isn't that fun?
It is. What is his last name?
Monaco.
Monaco. That sounds familiar. I don't think that was the one that I specifically worked with, but that one definitely sounds familiar. That's cool.
I know. I love some sweet potatoes too. I know it's the summer right now, and it's more like the fall season that we eat our sweet potatoes, but I'll tell you, I eat them all year long. So as we were thinking about this conversation, I wanted to learn a little bit more about this process of getting this thumbs up from your committee and now being a doctor. What is involved in that? Just the quick and dirty of it for someone that might have never thought about getting a PhD and know what are some of the big check marks you get through and how long it takes and everything.
It definitely depends on the program that you go into. The program that I went into, biological and ag engineering, it has a more flexible approach because some programs have required courses that you have to take. And our program, there's 2 required courses that you have to take, but then they're pretty flexible on what else you choose to add. So it's more so based off of like your interest. And so coming in for me, I have 2 degrees in math, and I was really interested in like statistics, data science, machine learning. And so I get to take that expertise and apply it to agriculture versus there are other students that come in with the agricultural background and they want to gain like the quantitative skills. My it was a 3-year program rather than like a 5-year PhD program because I came in with some credit from my master's. The biggest hurdle in the beginning for me was classes. You choose the classes that would, I guess, work well with your research. And so I had some quantitative classes and then some general knowledge about like grand challenges within agriculture.
Agriculture was new to you. You're
Agriculture is
saying
definitely
like
new.
you're in this program that is a joint program between our college engineering and College of Ag and Life Sciences, CALS.
Right.
So you pick classes that would really give you the foundation you needed.
Right. Outside of house plants, I had no knowledge of plants and all and how things grow. And so the first part was college courses or those courses. And I think for me, it took around, I had 2 years of coursework. It could have been less, but I fulfilled the minor, so I had to do at least 4 classes for the minor. So that was the first hurdle, was just getting done with the classes. And I also, something that was different from some programs is day 1, I started with the research project versus starting the program, taking your courses, and then once you're done with your courses, finding an advisor and then doing a project. Where I came in with an advisor, had a project, and started courses. So it could be a lot to get used to, I guess kind of accelerated in a sense. And so once you get through your courses, the next step would be, because during the time that you're taking your courses, you're also doing research. So your next big hurdle is your preliminary exam. And your preliminary exam is just up until that point, what research have you done towards your projects? And so you present that to say, I've done X, Y, Z. And then I'm proposing for my next project. Because by then you would have done your first chapter's work, your second chapter's work. At least that's kind of how it was set up for me. And then I propose the work that I'm going to do for the last. And so for that process, you also, from your committee member, you also get like a unconditional pass, a conditional pass, or I know that there's that you could have a fail, but I don't think that your advisor would allow you to do it if you weren't ready. So from that, I got an unconditional pass.
Of course you did. And I should also say, this is amazing. It sounds intimidating, but as you walk through it, it's like, well, you have to have the perseverance to even get to the prelims and the unconditional pass, because that sounded like it was about over 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also a lot of it is just, it is perseverance for sure, but you just have to be comfortable with doing some parts of this process scared. Because like, I don't think even before the prelim, I don't think I felt ready to do the prelim. It wasn't until after doing the prelim that I was like, oh, well, that wasn't that bad. I could have done this months prior. But a lot of this process has just been doing something scared, even the dissertation. So you have the coursework, you have your preliminary exam. And I will say one thing that I skipped was before you can do your preliminary exam, you have something called a written exam, which your committee members will give you X amount of questions to answer. You have about a week to answer all questions, and you write that up, submit it to them. They have time to review it. If there's anything that you need to change or update, they'll ask you to do that. And that was a process for me. So that one wasn't unconditional. I had to like go back and revise some of the answer that I gave to one of the questions. That's why you have to be mindful when you choose your committee, because the questions that you can get will be from the background of your committee members. And so like I pursued a PhD in bio and ag engineering, but I have electrical and computing engineering professors on my committee. And although their questions were related to the work that I'm doing, it was just a different area that I didn't necessarily have to think about until that written exam. So you pass the written exam, then you do your preliminary exam. And then once you do the preliminary exam, you work to finish up on what you proposed. And then you do your dissertation defense. And
which is what you just did.
Yes.
And I'm just going to interrupt you on this one to say, huge. You walk in this room and all these people are there and you have an hour to talk about what you've done. And you said you got to have some family members on Zoom watching you. And they went away and talked and came back and said, unconditional.
Yes.
So how does that feel?
It feels amazing to have it completed, because I guess a lot of people that I've talked to say that the hard part is your prelim exam more so than your dissertation. Because by the time that you see the dissertation, they've approved what it is, what you're generally working on. But the first time that they're seeing your project as a whole is the prelim. So it's like you're just taking a big breath after the dissertation is complete. Yeah.
Amazing. And I think it's so important to celebrate all of the wins, because it's easy to focus in on, and now I have to do the edits, which I know is where you are. And then I have to find the job, which is the next thing. And it's more and more on you. So share a little bit about your pause that you're taking and the celebration you recently had.
Well, the first pause was directly after the dissertation defense. I didn't touch my computer for about a week because you want to be as far from thinking about all of the things as possible. So that was the first pause. And I have been working on some edits here and there. So I've been able to spend, I guess, take back some of my weekend time. Whereas up until the defense, I was working some or a lot during the weekends just to kind of get everything finished, that last push. So I've taken back some of the weekend time. And then the next kind of time for celebration was my graduation cookout. My dad had a big graduation cookout. There was about 50 people. Family came, lab mates, friends, just to come and celebrate. And that was nice because a lot of the people that I hadn't seen in a while, and it's just the time to just focus on you and celebrate yourself, because you do have to take time out to focus on or to celebrate even the smallest wins. Like even getting through the day sometimes, like we're celebrating, I made it through the day and I at least checked one thing off my to-do list. Like you have to get in the process of celebrating yourself for sure.
How does it feel when people say Dr. McDowell now? Are you looking behind your shoulder going, wait, who are they talking to?
Well, I have a lot of family that has said it, and it's weird coming from, not even, it's weird coming from family, like I expect it from them, but it's weird coming from, like, I know, like, one of my committee members recently reminded me, they were like, so you actually defended your dissertation, you're complete, you are Dr. McDowell, and they were like, you can call me by my first name. And that's weird, like, having, I guess, people in the academic setting call me doctor, so it takes some getting used to, because like I kind of feel like I still feel like that doctoral student that I was a few months ago, not now being Dr. McDowell.
For sure. We're talking about identities. You've been a student, it sounds like almost your whole life, and you think about going all the way through high school and you went straight to master's, straight to PhD, or was there any work in between?
So I took breaks between each degree. So went straight into undergrad for sure. But after undergrad, I started teaching. I graduated December, started teaching January. So I taught high school for 5 years. And for the first 3 years of teaching, I didn't do any type of extra like grad school. So I taught a full 3 years before going into my master's program. And then the first year of my master's, I was also teaching full time. So I do not recommend. It was a lot, but it's not impossible, but I don't recommend it. And so after getting my master's, I worked in a lab at Duke University I was a data tech for a structural biology lab. We looked at the COVID vaccine. It was during the actual COVID pandemic. But I worked there for 2 years before working on my PhD. So I took breaks to work between each degree, just because by the time you're done with the degree, I was a little burnt out. So I was like, let me work a little bit, save a little bit, and then jump back in it. And then before my PhD, that's when I was working at Duke, yeah.
I like that you had the time where you actually were a professional, not a student fully. And that's also nice for people to hear is that you can go back to school after being in the work world. You're not limited and you don't have to do it right away. Plus, your resume and your CV are a lot stronger because you have additional skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to get over to this thought of the identity that you had as a student versus right now. You are getting ready to start your job search. You've kind of put a toe and an ankle in the water. We'll get into your job search. I think what we're going to do is 2 episodes. So we're going to start this one today and we're going to close it out and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the whole job search process. But what's it like to think now I am not a full-time student? What do I do next? What's that identity piece? How are you grappling with it?
So I would say one of the things is just going back to your resume or going back to your CV and looking at all the things that you've done, because it's easy to have, like, in this PhD process, you have that tunnel vision of just finishing your project. And you may, I guess, assume the identity of a graduate student, for me, working on agricultural research. And so it's just like, I'm an agricultural data scientist. And that's what I've been this last 3-4 years. But when it comes to like jobs, you have more skills, or I've gained more skills than just working with agricultural data. So it's like, I'm a data scientist and I just happen to specialize currently in agricultural data. Prior to PhD, I was a data scientist and I was working with vaccine design, like data. So it's like you have to kind of think outside of your, I guess, PhD toolbox of all the tools that you've been able to gather. So then that way your searches for jobs or searches for occupations are more informed. Like, instead of just looking for an agricultural position, it's now I'm looking for just a data scientist role, because the tools that I've picked up across the board work regardless of the discipline. That takes some reminding, because sometimes I get on LinkedIn and I'm just like, okay, data scientist roles, are they working with agricultural data? No. So let me look for a different position. And the whole point of me getting the degree the way that I was able to is I wanted to focus on something more niche, to say. So agricultural was that, but I have a set of tools that I can apply to wherever. And so it's a constant reminding yourself that you have more tools than the data that you've worked with. That even makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know when we started this conversation, I said we're going to do a mock counseling session, but I also realized right at the beginning, this episode needs to just be about getting through the PhD. And so we're gonna have part 2 of this conversation coming up, listeners. So you'll have to wait till next week, where we get into that LinkedIn profile and some of the job search things that are happening with you and really dissect it. For today, to close out, what I think would be helpful is if you could share some advice for people, maybe in the middle of their program, or people that are thinking about starting a doctoral program in a STEM field. What do you wish you had known at that time?
I would say the first thing that I wish that I'd known prior to starting is that everybody doesn't know what they're doing and they're just trying to figure it out. And there'll be times in the process that you don't know and you feel like everybody around you does know, and they don't. Everybody's trying to figure out something, some part of their process. So you want to give yourself grace as you figure out whatever it is in your process. I would say not to compare yourself to others, because it's easy to say like, oh, well, this person has this. They've published their first paper, or their first paper is submitted to be published, and I'm still writing mine, or mine's still being reviewed. But your journey is your journey, and it's going to take the time that it takes, just like theirs is. So you can't compare each other's processes. So just focus on doing better tomorrow than you did today, if that makes sense. Like, just have the focus be on yourself, because your competition is just you. So am I doing better today than I did yesterday? I would say seek out opportunities. I mean, as a PhD student, seek out opportunities for soft skills. I was a part of a fellowship, the FAR Fellows Fellowship, and that was all around like building like presentation skills, building networking skills, and knowing your strengths. So we did like the strengths finders to figure out like for me, adaptability is one of my strengths. We also took a test that like measured like your emotional intelligence. And I think that those things were very helpful. So like if you have an opportunity to seek out those types of skills, whether it be through graduate school, like workshops, or being a part of a fellowship program like that, I think that it helps you become a well-rounded individual researcher and all of that. Because especially in STEM fields, if you're coding, you can get so locked into the technical aspect of what you do. And when you go to talk to someone does not have that technical background, you want to be able to kind of explain it in a way that somebody else would understand, not necessarily how you and your advisor understand it. So I would say seek out opportunities to build your soft skills and your technical skills, but soft skills are important because you have to be a human being in this world outside of your work.